Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Kristen. This is my booktube, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the books on my June TBR. So if you watched my May TBR, you'll know that I did that one a little bit differently. I only had a couple books that were listed by name for my TBR, and then the rest of the TBR was just more so genres of books that I was interested in reading, and I feel like that really worked out fairly well for me in May. Because I am such a mood reader, setting out a predetermined TBR for the month doesn't always work out for me, in that I'm probably not going to get to all of the books that I list out on TBR videos like that, because when the time comes to start a new book, I might not be in the mood for one of the ones on the list, and I might find something different. And I'm not a big fan of including books by name on my TBR that I just don't get to, because then I feel like there will be people who see me put a book on my TBR and then they want to hear what I think about it, only for me not to actually read it that month. So I think for me, it just works better for me to include the books that I know for sure I have to read on my TBRs, books that are for book clubs, books that I'm already making progress in, stuff like that. So we're going to keep that format going in June, and we are going to talk about a couple of specific titles, and then the rest is just going to be about vibes. So the first book on my June TBR is going to be no surprise to anyone that has been keeping up with my reading at all, really, because I'm going to be rolling over Crown of Midnight into June. I have started it. You can see I'm about, like 70 pages in? Yeah, I'm about 70 pages into the book. So I am making progress in this book, but I definitely won't finish it before the end of May. So this will likely be finished sometime in June. And then after this one, I'm going to be backtracking, I guess, a little bit and reading Assassin's Blade, which is kind of like the prequel to the true Throne of Glass series. And I know there are several ways to read the series and include Assassin's Blade. You could read this first and then go to Throne of Glass and proceed through the books that way. But the method that my friend used, who has already read the series and recommended to me, is to read Throne of Glass, then Crown of Midnight, and then Assassin's Blade. I don't know why specifically in that order. Maybe it'll make more sense when I actually get to Assassin's Blade, but I'm just taking her word for it. I trust her judgment, and I trust that reading Assassin's Blade third before Heir of Fire will be an enjoyable way to take in the series for me. So yeah, if I end up finishing Crown of Midnight in June, this will be the book that I am moving on to. Next up is the book that my workbook club picked for the month of June, and it is a reread for me, though I did not read it when I had a YouTube channel, so this will be my first time putting my thoughts about this book into video format. But the pick for my workbook club's June meeting is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Now, like I said, I've read this before and I really enjoyed this book. I think that this is such a creative plot for a thriller. So this book obviously centers around the death of Evelyn Hardcastle. And I always describe it as kind of a Groundhog Day murder mystery, where our main character is trapped in the bodies of various guests at this dinner party where Evelyn Hardcastle is murdered. Evelyn is murdered at 11 p.m. on the dot, and our main character relives the same day over and over again, bouncing from body to body of the different people that are attending this party, and is trying to figure out who is responsible for Evelyn's death. And they can only escape the time loop by solving the mystery. And I just thought that was such a unique plot for a thriller. I feel like this is one of the books that really got me back into reading like 3 years ago now. Back in like 2021, when I really got back into reading a lot for fun, this was one of the books that really got me back into reading thrillers. And clearly that stuck, because thrillers are my favorite genres. From what I remember, I really enjoyed pretty much everything about this book. I thought it was really well conceived. I thought it was well thought out. It had a very interesting plot. And because I read it several years ago now at this point, I don't really remember how it ends, and I don't remember a lot of the details in this book, so it should be a pretty fun reread for me. Also, the first time that I read this book, I read the physical copy. That's why I own it. So I think that this time it would be fun to listen to the audiobook. I have been told by one of my coworkers that they've been enjoying the narrator for this audiobook. So I think I may give that a try because I do feel like listening to an audiobook does give a little bit of a different reading experience than reading the physical book. So yeah, I'm excited to experience this book in a little bit of a different way and be able to talk about it with some coworkers. Because since I read this book a few years ago, I've just been recommending it to people and buying them books. So it'll be fun to actually get to talk to someone about the plot. And the last specific book on my TBR, which kind of also rolls into some of the vibes that I want for the month of June reading wise, is Cards on the Table by Agatha Christie. So this is one of my vintage paperback copies. I have a whole collection of Agatha Christie mass market paperbacks from like the 60s to the 80s, and this is one of them. I just think that these mass market paperbacks are so cool in the way that the covers are designed. They have like a really cool vintage whodunit kind of feel to them, more so than the new reprints do. They're also usually pretty cheap when I do find them at places like Half Price Books. They're usually around like $2 to $3. Some of them I've even gotten for 50 cents before. So yeah, I just love getting these little vintage pocket paperback Agatha Christie books. And maybe someday when I actually get all of my books organized in the way that I would like them to be, I can give a little tour of my Agatha Christie collection. So if you're not aware, over the last 2 or so years, I've been sprinkling in Agatha Christie books throughout my reads, and I am slowly but surely making my way through the Poirot mysteries. And this is the next one on my list. This is the 15th book in the Poirot detective series. They are pretty short. As you can see, this book is under 200 pages, and the audiobooks are usually around like 5 or so hours. So these short little whodunits are fun books to read, and also they help me break up some of these bigger reads because it takes me a long time to read a 400 to 500 page book, and we have a lot of them with this Throne of Glass series. So these smaller, more lightweight, easily digestible whodunit type books are going to come in clutch between these long marathonic reads that I'm going to be doing. And I also don't think that I've read an Agatha Christie book for a couple months now, so it's about time for me to start getting back into them a little bit and pick up where I left off. So we're going to be reading Cards on the Table at some point in June. And then after I finish Cards on the Table, if I do want to proceed with more Agatha Christie books, I do also have the next book in Poirot's series, which is this one, Poirot Loses a Client, or it's also called Dumb Witness.
Hello friends, Editing Kristen here, and I just need to correct myself really quickly because I misspoke. I stated that after Cards on the Table, the next book in the Poirot mystery series is Dumb Witness / Poirot Loses a Client, which is not in fact the case. There is another book in between those two that I completely forgot existed called Murder in the Mews. So the actual progression of the Poirot books that I am working on is Cards on the Table, then Murder in the Mews, and then Dumb Witness / Poirot Loses a Client. I know that that is a small detail. I know that it's rather trivial and probably no one would have noticed but me, but nonetheless, I wanted to correct myself because it would bother me if I didn't. So this is me correcting it in real time. That is all for this little check-in. I just needed to let you know that contrary to what I just stated and what I'm talking about for the rest of this clip, there is actually a third Agatha Christie book in the mix with the two that I'm talking about. Whether I get to all 3 of them in the month of June or not is yet to be determined, but I at least wanted you to know the next 3 in the progression of the series for me. So yeah, that is all for this check-in. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming, and thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of the video.
And that's another thing with these Agatha Christie books is that because they've been around for so long, they have changed, well, some of them have changed names a couple times. So if you are out there trying to start your own Agatha Christie collection, be aware of the different names of the books because you'll end up with multiple copies of the same book under different titles, because I've made that mistake before. And then this is a bit of a close-up of this copy, if anyone's at all interested. This one is from 1963, and then this one is from 1964. So just so you can get a feel of like what these books looked like in different eras. And just for a comparison, I feel like this version of Crown of Midnight is a pretty standard size for a paperback nowadays. So yeah, you can just see cover-wise how much smaller these Agatha Christie paperback books are compared to what I would consider a standard paperback size today. Yeah, because you can even see like these two books are basically the same size as well. So that's what I mean when I say I feel like that's kind of the standard size for a paperback today. And these ones from the 60s are a lot smaller. And I just like how unique they are, which is kind of ironic to say because they're mass market paperbacks, but they're just so different from the paperbacks that you get of these same books today. And they're also cheaper than buying new books. It also helps reduce waste when you buy used books. So I am a big proponent of collecting used books from places like Half Price Books or whatever your local used bookstore is. And because there are so many of these, I can walk into pretty much any used bookstore and find at least a couple Agatha Christie books. It just makes for a fun thing to collect, I feel. So yeah, those are the specific titles I have for my June TBR. And in addition to these books, I do have a couple more just in mind in the back of my head if I feel in the mood to read them. In the month of May, I did read both Part of Your World and Yours Truly, which means I have one more left in the series, which is Just for the Summer. And I really enjoyed these two books quite a bit. So I'm sure I'm gonna love Just for the Summer just as much. But because I know that I will probably really like that book, I kind of want to save it for when I'm feeling on the verge of a reading slump or if I feel a little bored with the book options that I have, because I do genuinely feel like these two books helped pull me out of a reading slump in May. I want to make sure that I'm not just blowing through all of Abby Jimenez's books as quickly as I can just because I love them. So Just for the Summer is going to be on the back burner and kept in reserve until I need a little reading pick-me-up. And I know that Abby Jimenez has other books too, but I just want to make sure that I am keeping some books on deck that I know will be able to pull me out of a reading slump if one should occur. And from everything that I've heard from people who have finished the Throne of Glass series, I'm gonna need it once I get to Kingdom of Ash. That might not happen for a while, but everything that I've seen online of people reading it, plus the people that I know in real life that have read it, have told me that finishing Kingdom of Ash led to the biggest reading slump that they've ever had. So I just want to make sure that I'm prepared for that and have some palate cleansing books on deck that will help pull me out of that. So yeah, I do want to continue reading my thrillers, making progress with those, but I don't have any specific titles in mind. So I'll have to cross that bridge and make decisions about those books when I get to them. Just kind of decide off vibes in the moment, because that's basically how I pick my thrillers nowadays. And then also in the romance vein, I do have a couple Emily Henry books that I haven't read before that would be good options to read in June as well if I feel like I want more of a romance vibe. Again, since I'm such a mood reader, it's hard to determine what kind of books I'm going to be in the mood for, because there are times when all I want to read are romances or fantasies, and I don't pick up a thriller at all, surprisingly. And then there are other times where I'm just so into my thrillers that I don't even read anything else for the entire month. So it could go either way. And then sometimes I get into other genres completely. Like there will be times when I just really want to read some classics. So there's no telling what my mood is going to bring in June, but those are some of the different vibes that I'm feeling right now and the books that I do really need to finish in June for book clubs or just to make progress in different series that I'm working on. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my June TBR. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below. Let me know. You should also subscribe while you're down there because I put out new videos every single weekend. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!